Let's do it. Plenty to get to here on the channel tonight, including exactly what to make of Bobby Slowik, the new offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans, and Jerrod Johnson, the new quarterback coach of the Houston Texans. I'm Cody Stutes. Thank you for finding the channel. Thank you for jumping in on the comment section. You can get in right over there in the comment section. Plenty to get to over the course of the time we're spending together here on YouTube. Hope you're catching it live here on YouTube, and if not, appreciate you watching it back as well. Bobby Slowik's the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans after a flirtation with Cliff Kingsbury. We'll talk about that. Jerrod Johnson is the quarterback's coach. I have some history with Jerrod Johnson. We will talk about that as well on the channel tonight. So get your comments in. We will talk about those. Super chats go to the top of the list when it comes to comments. We'll do Q&A at the end of this show. So get those comments in. We appreciate you tuning in and talking Texans with us. Happy to see you. Franchise Gaming with Friends. Floyd, good to see you as well. Jose, everything's going great. Jose, appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate everybody tuning in. All right, let's get to it. Bobby Slowik is the offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. This was, I don't want to say an unexpected hire. It was almost expected. Even with the flirtation, the conversation with Cliff Kingsbury, I still believe that Bobby Slowik is going to end up as the offensive coordinator. The Kingsbury conversation, once it started Friday and didn't finish Friday with Cliff Kingsbury getting hired, it felt very much to me like Bobby Slowik was still the front runner. And I would tell you this, Slowik set an incredibly high bar for what Kingsbury and anybody else that was trying to get the offensive coordinator job had to clear. Now remember, Bobby Slowik was one of a handful of people that they talked to for the offensive coordinator job. It was Slowik who was the first interview, the second interview, Troy Walters, who was the first interview, the Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver coach. And then it was Nick Caley, who was the tight ends coach in New England, is now the tight ends coach in LA. So those were the first three names they talked to, and those were the only three names they talked to for a good long while. There'd been some rumored conversations with some other guys on the staff, including Jerrod Johnson, who ultimately got hired as the quarterback's coach, and we'll talk about him tonight, I should say. But Slowik seemed to be the favorite once they talked to the three guys they initially talked to. Then when Kingsbury gets in the equation, it became very interesting to see exactly what Cliff Kingsbury was going to bring to the table from this interview process. I believed Cliff to be an absolutely valid candidate. I would have been totally fine with Cliff Kingsbury being the offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. It's a little bit different than what DeMeco Ryans has been used to in his NFL career from an offensive standpoint, but Kingsbury with head coach knowledge and just the ability to help quarterbacks grow was a really intriguing hire. One of my favorite things about potentially Kingsbury being involved was Mahomes in 2017 when I interviewed him, raved about hanging out with Kingsbury on Sundays, watching the best quarterbacks in the NFL like Brady and Rodgers and taking things that occurred on Sunday and translating it into the college offense that they ran at Texas Tech. So that was something that was a great story from Mahomes about Kingsbury, and Mahomes talked about how much that helped him in picking up NFL offenses. Those are some of the things that intrigued me about Kingsbury. But it is an offense that, despite being an offensive guru, it has not been an elite offense a lot of the times. So there were questions about that. It's also a pass-first offense for Cliff Kingsbury. So the run-first or run-oriented offense that the Shanahan tree is going to run, that the Shanahan tree brings to the table, which Bobby Slowik is a part of, that is something that I believe was much more attractive to DeMeco Ryans for the way that you run your defense, and is much more familiar to DeMeco Ryans for what he wants to bring to the table. We'll talk about Slowik here in a moment. Let's get to some of your comments as well throughout the show. Sean, welcome in. Appreciate you. Isaiah, nice. We got a new background. Yes, this is a new background. This is a custom art piece from a friend of mine's wife. She's fantastic. She does some incredible art stuff, some incredible original art. She's a very, very good artist. If you're ever interested in some original art in a similar style to this, please let me know, and I will get you in touch with her if she is indeed still doing commissions. David, appreciate you getting in. Ryan, thank you for the comment on the backup. What's good? What's good? Everything's good. The Texans feel like they're good right now. We'll talk a lot about Bobby Slowik and some of the other things that went down with the Texans. Joshua, hard to be excited hiring Jerrod Johnson and Slowik knowing they are going to have Mills or a retread this year. No chance, Joshua. No chance. You're going to have a big-time quarterback, I believe. Clint Kubiak, we'll talk about that as well. We'll talk about that as well on the course of the show and how that is maybe the situation. Tim, horns up. Texans, horns up. Hey, Tim, Texas Tech just took care of UT in basketball, but I appreciate you tuning in, man. I hope the horns down didn't offend you too much. Clint Kubiak is not official. We will talk about that in a moment. All right, wanted to get some of your comments in here. Daniel, we'll go with your comment, and then we'll get into Bobby Slowik, the offensive coordinator. Slowik should be awesome. What's your take on our QB prospects, and how do you feel about a top running back to pair up with Pierce? Got so many holes. Can you imagine Bijan paired with Pierce? You know what, Daniel? Let's put a star in it. Let's save it for Q&A. We'll get to Q&A at the end. We're going to talk Bobby Slowik. We're going to talk Jerrod Johnson. We're going to talk some of the coaching cycle stuff that went down, and then we'll get to Q&A here at the end. So if you have questions, I will try to star those and get to those at the end. I'll answer some as they go along if they are right here in what we're talking about. Let's talk about Bobby Slowik. Slowik's going to be 36 years old when this season gets going and he starts calling plays for the Houston Texans. Went to Michigan Tech. Okay, it's from Princeton, New Jersey, went to Green Bay Southwest High School. Now, why is Green Bay Southwest High School in Green Bay, Wisconsin, why is that important? Well, Bobby Slowik is the son of Bob Slowik, who is the former Green Bay Packers defensive back coach and defensive coordinator. Bobby is Bob's son. And Bob has coached football for a very long time, was a defensive coordinator a few times in the NFL, and is actually still coaching football in the Canadian Football League. Bobby Slowik is his son, and as I mentioned, was at Michigan Tech. Once he finished up at Michigan Tech, he bounced around a little bit, ended up in the Washington organization for Mike Shanahan, and was in the video room for Mike Shanahan before moving into what makes sense for the Slowik family, a defensive assistant role. Now, he was in Washington as a defensive assistant for a couple of years, again, working on the defensive side of the football. Then he was out of football for a handful of years. He worked at one point at Pro Football Focus, and I saw one of the commenters from Pro Football Focus who still works there that said one of the guys he learned the most from when it comes to NFL football was when Bobby Slowik worked at Pro Football Focus. So teaching Joe Schmo media member a little bit about football came pretty natural to Bobby Slowik. He's back into football in San Francisco in 2017 when he's a defensive quality control coach with DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans and Bobby Slowik jump in as defensive quality control coaches at the same time. Now you're saying to yourself, Cody, Bobby Slowik's coaching the offense. What do you mean defensive quality control coach? Well, he's a defensive quality control coach for 2 years, and then Kyle Shanahan. Now think about this. Kyle Shanahan, one of the best offensive minds in all of football, Kyle Shanahan flips him to the offensive side of the ball. Kyle Shanahan takes little Bobby Slowik and flips him over the offensive side of the ball. So Slowik has coached offense in 19, 20, 21, and 22. And now he's going to be an offensive coordinator in just his 5th year coaching offense. His 5th year coaching offense is going to be as the offensive coordinator. If that doesn't scream fast riser, I don't know what will. If that doesn't scream that Kyle Shanahan trusts this guy, I don't know what will. It's really exciting that a guy has coached offense for 4 years under Kyle Shanahan, and Shanahan was maybe going to be comfortable enough to make him the offensive coordinator. Now, DeMeco's going to hand things over to Bobby Slowik on the offensive side, and the 36-year-old, 36 at the time of when the play gets going and the season gets going, the 36-year-old Bobby Slowik is going to call plays. I'm excited that he's a fast riser. I am a little nervous that he is an inexperienced offensive guy. But there's an element of trust in DeMeco Ryans that we need to have. If we like DeMeco Ryans, the head coach, if we believe in DeMeco Ryans, there should be an element of trust to what DeMeco Ryans is doing. So we're going to trust DeMeco a little bit that he's going to turn the reins over to a guy coaching his fifth year of offense and just 36 years old, and that's going to be the top offensive mind in the building. It's a bit of a risk, yes, just his fifth year coaching offense. But at the same time, this is a guy that was a fast riser for Kyle Shanahan, who he seemingly plucked from the defensive side over to the offensive side. And I'm very excited to see what Slowik brings to the table. I don't have a reference point for how Bobby Slowik is going to run things. But what I do know is he's likely to run a version or the Kyle Shanahan style of offense, where the run sets a lot of stuff up. You see bootlegs. Play action is something that is very dominant. Excuse me, I have to sneeze. All right, I thought I had to sneeze. Let's try to spare you from the sneeze. He's going to run that Kyle Shanahan system where you're going to need to be tough. You're going to need to be able to get tough yards. You're going to need to be able to make all the throws on the field, and you're going to have a cohesive and effective offense. The Texans have had momentary spurts of cohesive, effective offense in the past, say, 5 or 6 years. Momentary spurts where this might work and this might work, and then it looks pretty good. But for the most part, the Texans haven't been consistent, cohesive on offense. That's going to be one of the biggest charges for Bobby Slowik running this offense. Again, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. And it's obviously not going to look like Kyle Shanahan's offense, because Shanahan's working with a whole heck of a lot more from the offensive standpoint. But this is the way the NFL is going. You take your offense, you hand it to a young guy, and you hope that he's inventive and forward-thinking enough to get you rolling on offense. That's the way the NFL goes. You look at what happened in L.A. with Sean McVay. You look at what happened in Cincinnati with Zach Taylor. You look at what happened in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell. You look at what happened in Miami with Mike McDaniel. You take a young guy, you give him the offense, and you let him go to work. And that's what DeMeco Ryans has done with 35, soon to be 36-year-old Bobby Slowik, who is now the offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. I'm excited for it. I am as excited for Bobby Slowik as I would have been for Cliff Kingsbury. There's a couple of things that I do believe Slowik being on the staff means for the rest of the staff. We'll get to that in a moment, but let's get to some of your comments. Who is Jerrod Johnson? Cheong Fung, we will get to that here in just a moment. As I mentioned, Clint Kubiak is not official yet, but could be official here very, very soon. Yeah, the Colts aren't going to look like they hire Shane Steichen to run their offense. I was hoping they'd hire Jeff Saturday and we could laugh at them. That's not going to be the case. Isaiah Lemons, you mean Ugly Bobby. Now, hold on now, Isaiah. Hold on now. So, if you look at the thumbnail for this video, you'll see Bobby Slowik and you'll see Jerrod Johnson, and you'll see two professional wrestlers underneath them. Underneath Bobby is beautiful Bobby Eaton, who was a tag team wrestler for a very, very, very long time. Was at the Midnight Express with Jim Cornette, Stan Lane, and some other guys. That's the version that I'm most familiar with, is the Stan Lane, Jim Cornette. Beautiful Bobby Eaton. So I'm calling him Beautiful Bobby Slowik. Now, Isaiah is making fun of me because earlier today, my co-host Jake Asman on the Wheelhouse, ESPN 97.5 and 92.5, he was talking about, handsome Cliff Kingsbury. And I was like, well, I guess it's just ugly Bobby Slowik now. But no, Bobby's not ugly. He's beautiful. Beautiful Bobby Slowik. Just check out the thumbnail that has beautiful Bobby Eaton next to beautiful Bobby Slowik. And then Double J Jeff Jarrett. I don't think I have to explain why Double J Jeff Jarrett is on the same side of the page as Jerrod Johnson. Double J Jerrod Johnson. So had some fun with the thumbnail today. Huge fan, been watching the show every day. Aiden, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just Plain Dave, what's up, Cody? What's up, chat? Hope y'all having a good evening. Yeah, man. Hey, y'all interact in the chat, man. Y'all get to know each other in the chat and hang out and have some fun. I'm not just creating a channel for me. We're creating a community that's talking Texans, Houston sports. We're going to do some fun stuff on the channel, maybe some food reviews and stuff like that. We're creating a little community here on YouTube. It is not just me talking Texans to y'all. It's a little community where y'all can get to hang out. Do you think the Texans could possibly hire Cliff as an assistant head coach, provide some experience for Ryan's staff on offense? It'd be more of a laid-back type of job. Cliff might like that. Jose, good question. I don't know that Cliff Kingsbury would want to jump in to a job where he's not running an offense. This guy's run offenses since 2012. 2012. He's run offenses since 2012. That's what he's done. He was at Texas A&M with Johnny Manziel. He was at Texas Tech where he called all the plays, and he was in the NFL where he called the plays on offense as well. So he runs offenses, and so I don't know if he would want to come in and not run the offense. I do think there's an element of Kingsbury interviewing that helps him make sure he gets his money from Arizona. He has I believe the clause is called a mitigation of services. He has to go try to find jobs while he's getting paid out from the Cardinals. So I wonder if there was a tiny element of that. Kingsbury does not have to take a job. He can sit on his buyout money. I don't believe he'd be interested in the assistant head coach conversation. But what Jose brings up is someone with experience on this staff is something that's necessary. I do believe this staff needs to go find some experienced and some long-term coaches. Preferably, if you have someone on the staff that has former head coach experience. Just somebody to just help DeMeco along a little bit, or to help Bobby Slowik, or to help some of the other members of the staff just a little bit. Now, the names are limited. There's not a ton of names out there that you're just like, oh, let's absolutely add that guy to the staff. He knows what he's doing. He's going to be fantastic for this team. I don't know that there's a bunch of names out there, but DeMeco Ryans said in his introductory press conference he was going to have a young staff, old staff, a good mix, a diverse mix on his staff, not just about race, but about age and experience level. He's got a lot of young guys. He's got the young guy in Bobby Slowik. He's got the young guy in Jerrod Johnson, who we'll talk about here in a moment. He doesn't have the old guys yet. So the old guys are going to be fun to see who they hire, who they bring in, what kind of experience they have. We talked about it on the radio program today, ESPN 97.5, 92.5, weekdays, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., the Wheelhouse, also the ESPN 97.5 app and the ESPN 97.5 Twitch. Anthony Lynn was a name in the offensive coordinator conversation we thought. Ultimately, Slowik's going to be the OC, and because he's the OC, Anthony Lynn, the former Chargers head coach, former Bills offensive coordinator, he cannot come over to the Texans unless the 49ers allow him to come over. So he's already the running backs coach and assistant head coach. There's not a promotion that he can come over and the 49ers can't deny him. They'd have to give permission if Anthony Lynn was going to come over. I got to imagine Kyle Shanahan wants to keep Anthony Lynn hanging around. So be looking. There should be some older guys added to this staff, some guys with a bit more NFL experience than some of the guys we have currently had. One Mike Street, one Ugly Bobby. No, he's beautiful Bobby. He's beautiful Bobby. We'll call him Ugly Bobby when we don't like the offense. That's mean. Ugly offense Bobby. We'll call him Beautiful Bobby while we like the offense. I'm excited to see this. Not worried at all. Got a question about sending a pick to the Bengals. We'll talk about that in the Q&A section. Any major coaching positions still not filled? On the Texans, not filled. Look, OC's filled, DC's filled. Obviously, DeMeco's the head coach. And QB coach was really important. We're going to talk about Jerrod Johnson here in just a second. QB coach was really important to hire, and I like the hire of Jerrod Johnson. I'll tell you why in a second. CJ Gang or Young Gang? I'm getting closer to the idea of either one's going to be okay with me. I don't want to sit on the fence. I prefer Young, obviously. I believe they got to leave the top two picks with a quarterback, though. Slowik have experience on both sides of the ball, make you feel better about developing an elite offense. I think I like his unique background. I like that he's got a little bit of work on the defensive side of the ball. It's not like he's a damn defensive coordinator that switched over. I mean, he's a defensive assistant for a couple of years, and he popped over to offense. So it's not like he has some massive advantage that some of these other guys don't have, but it's cool that he's got a little bit of defensive experience to him. Just plain Dave. RIP. Bobby Eaton is a legend. Yeah, beautiful Bobby Eaton could go, man. He was a fantastic wrestler. And I like beautiful Bobby Eaton because beautiful Bobby Eaton didn't look like he was carved out of granite. Beautiful Bobby Eaton had a belly, but boy, he could go. Had them 60-minute matches on Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that'd be nice, Enzo. I'd like that. Like that. Monday stream. What's up, Hefe? Appreciate you tuning in. All right, we'll do the questions there in a little while. We'll talk about this. I star the questions, so we'll get back to them in the Q&A. We're going to talk to Jerrod Johnson a little bit about the coaching cycle, and then Q&A, and you guys can fire away. We'll answer whatever you want. But think about it, Cody. You could have the coolest staff, Cool Cliff, and the most interesting man in the world, Matt Burke. Yeah, man, that would have been a unique staff. D'Amico Ryans and his billion-dollar smile, Coach Cool, and the most interesting coach in the world, Matt Burke. Burke's a unique character, man. Climbs mountains, does charity work and missionary work out in Africa. Kilimanjaro, I think, is the 4th highest peak in the world, and he's climbed it. So Burke's an interesting guy. Was a really bad defensive coordinator for 2 years in Miami, but I believe D'Amico is going to call the defense with Burke being here. Cliff visiting with the Ravens. That's one way to get Lamar excited. It's one way to get Lamar excited. Aiden Marino. Cully's my neighbor. I know him personally. Tell Coach Cully hello. Tell Coach Cully hello. Assuming they go QB at 2, who would you want to trade down, pick up future assets? We'll save that for the questions a little bit later. Can we talk about what's the best restaurant to take your girlfriend and wife for Valentine's Day tomorrow? Asking for a friend. Isaiah, you stick around. We will get to that in the questions. Is D'Amico the Rock? Because he's the people's champ of Houston. He's getting there. He's getting there. Cody, run for mayor of H-Town. Wouldn't want the job. Wouldn't want the job. All right, I see a Bijan Robinson question in there. And actually, yes, just plain Dave, you're right. Before he was at A&M, he was on the UH staff as well. All right. I talked about beautiful Bobby Slowik, one of the guys in the captions. I actually don't know where the caption is or where the thumbnail is on the pic. I think it's down this way. It's down here. Am I doing this right? It's anywhere. You look at the thumbnail. I'm pointing the wrong way. It's down here. All right, so you look at the thumbnail, and you got beautiful Bobby Eaton and beautiful Bobby Slowik. The other guy on the thumbnail is Double J Jeff Jarrett and Double J Jerrod Johnson. Jerrod Johnson is a former Texas A&M quarterback who had a pro football career that was about 7 or so seasons, and then has been in coaching since 2017. And with a slight detour in 18, back to some football and then back to coaching. So Jerrod is from the Houston area and went to Texas A&M and played really well at Texas A&M. And before his senior season was maybe a borderline first, second round pick. Jerrod hurt his shoulder in college, was never the same, and basically through the mental capacity that he brought to the table as a quarterback and what he was able to still do physically, even though his shoulder never really got right, he found himself with a couple of opportunities in the National Football League. He was in Philadelphia for a minute. He was with the Steelers for a minute. He was with the Bears, the Ravens, had a quick cup of coffee with the Dallas Cowboys. And then Jerrod was out of football, got into coaching, and has sort of moved his way through the coaching ranks. And I have a unique perspective on Jerrod Johnson because my co-host at my old radio job, John Lopez, is very close with Jerrod. Jerrod and his sons grew up together. John had been a very close member of Jerrod's family. And so Jerrod used to come on the radio show. And Jerrod used to come on the radio show and hang out and talk football and was telling people about, kind of the future of football. So when you look at Jerrod's Wikipedia page, and you look at his coaching history, and you pay attention to this stuff, you'll see that his coaching career really only started in 2017. That's not quite totally wholly true. Jerrod Johnson has been around the Elite 11 camps for a while. Now, that's coaching up the top high school quarterback prospects in the nation. So the Elite 11 camps, Jerrod's been a part of those for a few years, including coaching an Elite 11 team that had Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud on it a couple of years ago. Okay? So Bryce Young and CJ Stroud through the Elite 11 program, which is the top quarterback prospects from across the nation, have been coached by Jerrod Johnson. And sitting down, talking with Jerrod, his NFL career, his offensive philosophy, the way that he goes about things, I really, really like this hire. I really like this hire for the Houston Texans. Jerrod had some coaching fellowship stuff and then did so well in Indianapolis, they made him a quality control coach. Frank Reich had him as a quality control coach, and then Kevin O'Connell plucks him off of Frank Reich's staff, takes him to Minnesota, and he's the assistant QB's coach in Minnesota for Kevin O'Connell. And now he's going to be the quarterback's coach for the Houston Texans this year. I really like Jerrod. Hall of Fame human being, world class guy, extremely nice, extremely smart. When I knew him by choice, he just took incredible care of his body. Did not, did not eat bad. Worked out a ton. Was always staying ready when he was coming on the radio show in case there was ever that chance the football career was going to take off again. But he talked about coaching and how much he enjoyed the Elite 11 stuff and how much he really liked coaching the young guys. And then hearing Jerrod talk about quarterbacks and what they mean to the roster and what they bring to the roster and some of the familiarity he had with Deshaun Watson ahead of him getting drafted by the Houston Texans. It was really fun to pick Jerrod's brain. I mean, he was in a QB room with Big Ben Roethlisberger. He's in a QB room with Jay Cutler. And hearing Jerrod talk about football and the excitement level that he had when he wasn't even in coaching for instilling knowledge, talking about football, the passion that he had for it, I'm really excited for Jerrod Johnson to be the quarterback coach. Some of the modernization of the quarterback spot, some of the forward-thinking offense was stuff that Jerrod was talking about on the radio show back in the day. Young, forward-thinking, go-for-it offensive coordinators, a lot of that stuff was what Jerrod was talking about when he was popping on the radio show in the past. And for anybody who's worried about the defensive coach being the head coach and that offensive guy leaving the building, the Texans have a clear and interesting succession plan if Bobby Slowik is impressive. If Bobby Slowik is good at his job, the Texans now have a clear succession plan for what occurs. If it takes 2 years, Bobby Slowik didn't get a head coach opportunity somewhere, it's very easy to shift Jerrod Johnson from quarterback coach to offensive coordinator. Jerrod interviewed for the Chargers offensive coordinator job. Now think about that. The Chargers, who ultimately ended up with Kellen Moore, they interviewed Jerrod they were going to potentially hand the offense to Jerrod Johnson with Justin Herbert at the helm. Like that's how well they thought of Jerrod Johnson, who's been in coaching for a handful of years and is in his mid-30s. Like the Chargers interviewed him for an OC job. So Jerrod is going to be a fun guy to watch. He's going to connect in an incredible way with these quarterbacks. It's a fun tag team. That's why I got the two wrestlers, and I'm calling them a tag team. It's a great tag team and a great opportunity for these guys that I like it, Bobby Slowik and Jerrod Johnson, as the offensive tag team for the Houston Texans right now. I'm really excited for Jerrod. Great guy. He was always nice to me. He is the source of one of my biggest moments of pain as a college football fan. He absolutely diced up Texas Tech in a game. I think it's the last game the Aggies ever played, the Red Raiders. So he's a source for some of my college football pain. But world-class human being. Great, great guy. And I'm very excited for Jerrod Johnson. All right, couple of things. How about this coaching search that ends up with DeMeco Ryans? And by the way, get your questions in on the Q&A in the comments. We'll get to Q&A. I got them starred. I got the questions starred. So we'll get to Q&A here in just a minute. So get your questions in. Remember, if you want a super chat, you go to the top of the line. We'll answer your question first ahead of everybody else. Here's a fun thing about this coaching search because Jonathan Gannon may end up in Arizona. It looks like Steichen's going to end up in Indianapolis. The Texans will have interviewed the guy who got the Broncos job, the guy who got the Colts job. They got D'Amico Ryans, and he's the most sought after candidate from this coaching cycle. They will have interviewed Gannon if he gets the Cardinals job, and they interviewed Ben Johnson. And if the Panthers got to just wave a magic wand and pick any of the candidates, Ben Johnson was their guy. Now, ultimately, he went back to the Lions, but Ben Johnson is the guy the Panthers really wanted. So the Texans would have gone 5 for 5 if the Panthers had hired Ben Johnson and Gannon goes to Arizona and the Colts hired Steichen. They would have gone 5 for 5 in talking to guys that got hired. And that is such an incredible change from talking to what is now a fired offensive coordinator in Joe Lombardi, an XFL coach in Hines Ward, and a high school assistant and YouTuber turned quarterbacks coach in Josh McCown. What a incredibly different and incredibly more impressive list from the Texans this time around. And of course, they got the most desired candidate in D'Amico Ryans. How about that? How about that? All right, Q&A time. Let it fly. Whatever you want to talk about, we'll talk Texans. We'll talk entertainment. We got a question about where to take your gal for Valentine's Day. Let's get into it. Little Q&A. Ivory, I see this one. You're up. We'll get to the start one here in just a second. Who will be the offensive line coach? So Aaron Wilson is reporting that the hopeful offensive line coach is going to be the Colts offensive line coach. And I'm pulling his name up right now so that I don't butcher it and I don't mess it up. The Colts offensive line coach is who Aaron Wilson reported the Texans have their eyes on. A guy by the name of Chris Strausser. Now, Strausser has been around the Colts for a few years now, and Strausser has been coaching as long as I've been alive. He started coaching in 1989 and started as a wide receivers coach and a tight ends coach at Menlo, which is an NAIA college in California. And he's been in the NFL since 2014 as a offensive line coach, assistant offensive line coach, O-line coach for the Broncos, and then the Colts offensive line coach for the past 4 seasons, 19, 20, 21, 22. Why is this guy interesting? The Colts they really did an incredible job putting together their offensive line. They had some guys in the second round that he coached up that played really well. Obviously, Quentin Nelson turned into the best guard in football underneath him. They did not have a good year this year on the offensive line, but Strausser is an interesting name to show up on the staff. And as I mentioned, 30-plus years of coaching for Strausser. So, all right, the starred questions, we'll get to those, and then we'll get to some of the questions you have as well. And, of course, as I mentioned, if you have a super chat, you go to the top of the line, you cut the line, and we will talk about that. Daniel, Slowik should be awesome. What's your take on our QB prospects, and how would you feel about a top running back to pair up with Pierce? Got so many holes, you can imagine Bijan being paired with Pierce. I'm fine with taking Bijan at 12. Daniel Jeremiah and Dane Brugler have both confirmed this is the deepest running back the deepest running back class in a long time. So if you feel like you can get value elsewhere and you have to go somewhere else with the 12th overall pick, you don't have to go with Bijan. So that's something that I would pay attention to from that standpoint. I believe Bijan is Christian McCaffrey-esque. I don't believe there's another Christian McCaffrey-esque guy in this draft. So I would think that Bijan is by far the best running back prospect. There's a significant gap between him and number 2, but there's a lot of guys that can pair well with Dameon Pierce. So I think that there is definitely a chance to go for Bijan. I think he might go 10 to the Eagles. If I had to make a mock draft, which I will make a mock draft, if I had to make a mock draft, I'd put him 10 to the Eagles. Isaiah, I told you guys about my draft crush on Zay Flowers, mid to late first round. Man, mid to late first round to middle of the second round. I don't know exactly where Zay Flowers is going to go. I like Zay Flowers. You know who else likes Zay Flowers? I watched a video. I watched him break it down. Steve Smith Sr. really likes Jay Flowers. I love me some Jay Flowers. I'm excited to see what he does in the National Football League. Size, a little bit of a concern. Maybe you don't want that many small guys, but the dude can play. Flat out baller. How Howard Amu. Howard Mamu. We'll go with that. Would you send the 12th pick to the Bengals for T. Higgins and the 28th pick back? Yeah. I think that's a you're not finding a wide receiver that's as good as T. Higgins with the 12th overall pick. You're just not. And then you get the 28th pick back. I think the Bengals would laugh at you if you tried to do that. But I'd do that. Yeah, I would absolutely do that. Especially if you're going QB at 2. QB, T. Higgins, and then the 28th pick. Yeah. And you got ammo if you want to go from 28 up in the first round. Yeah, I'd do that. Assuming they go QB at 2, who would you draft at 12, or would you trade down future assets? I know we briefly spoke Friday. Vera. Oh, Vera. Hey, Vera, how are you? Good to see you in here. Here's my dream. QB at 2, from the 12th pick, go to, say, 20, and draft a defensive player. So, Drew Sanders, Nolan Smith, the Iowa kid whose name's escaping me right now, the Notre Dame kid whose name is escaping me right now. That's what I think is the move when it comes to drafting guys at 12. Like, I'd trade down from 12, try to snag some extra picks. Brzee, I really like Brzee. I'm kind of coming around on him. Brian Brzee, the defensive lineman from Clemson, kind of plays. He plays tackle, but he'd play like a 3-4 end. He'd play a tackle, obviously, in a 4-3. Brian Brzee is a guy I'm really coming around on. So I like that name. I like him. I like him at 12. If you want to stick and pick Brzee at 12, like that would be fine with me. Vera, thank you for tuning in, my friend. Restaurant take your wife or girlfriend Valentine's Day. Okay, what do y'all think? What do y'all think? Like, because if you haven't made plans by now, getting to the fancy place might be tough. If you haven't made plans by now, it might be tough to get into a fancy place. Um, here's a little twist for you. Okay, here's a little twist. There's a food truck park over off Chimney Rock and Westheimer. It's between Richmond and Westheimer on Chimney Rock. And there's about 8 food trucks there, and they all are really good. It's going to be good enough weather, you would hope. I think it may rain, but it's going to be good enough weather, you would think, that you can be out there and hit like 4 or 5 food trucks and then just have a picnic in the car or a picnic on the tailgate if you got a truck. I think that's a good move. I really like Burger Bodega over on Washington. It's one of my new favorite spots. That's a cool place. Small inside. If it's raining, their outside's not going to be open. If you wait in line, it's worth the wait. Here's my biggest thing on this. Just pick a place. Like, don't ask her what she wants. Tell her, we're going here. We're getting this. And if she doesn't like it, have a pivot ready. Hey, we're going to the food truck park and we're going to try, this slider truck and this birria truck and this and that. I don't want to do that. Oh, okay. Let's go to this place, like a bar and grill or a pub or something like that. Upside Pub is a good place. That's kind of on the north side of 610 I'm trying to give you guys some stuff all around the place. We just got a new sponsor. Um, it's got some cool upscale stuff. 411 Sports Bar and Grill. 411 Sports Bar and Grill. Uh, a nice upscale appetizer menu. They got some fancy stuff. They got your typical sports bar fare. They got steaks. They got burgers. Man, they got some real cool stuff. So 411 Sports Bar and Grill. If you tell them ESPN when you're paying, you get a little discount. You get a little discount. So 411 Sports Bar and Grill. And for you folks down south, like Sugarland, Richmond area, Frankie's Italian Kitchen is dynamite. If you can get into Frankie's Italian Kitchen tomorrow, take your significant other to Frankie's Italian Kitchen. Okay. All right. I hope I'm not too far behind on questions. But let's fire through some of these. First guy they signed in free agency. Yeah, I don't know the first guy. I'm there to talk to linebackers, defensive linemen, and and guys like that. So I would think that they're going to go defensive, probably a little bit more defense heavy from that standpoint. Daniel, knowing the background, would Jerrod take both Bryce and CJ? Jerrod worked with both. Jerrod was never a physical limitations guy. Jerrod wanted to know what you had up here and what could you bring to the table up there. In that case, Bryce would be the guy that Jerrod would go for. That would be the guy. All right, so the Clint Kubiak thing, not official. They're trying to get Kubiak. I believe it was Albert Breer this morning. Maybe it was somebody else, but I believe it was Breer. If Lou Anarumo gets the job in Arizona, Clint Kubiak's going to his staff. If he doesn't, then Clint Kubiak's likely going to come here. So that's the Clint Kubiak latest, I would say. What centers should we get in free agency? There's two: Garrett Bradbury, who's from Minnesota, and Ethan Posich from Cleveland. Been really good for them. Obviously, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt have been fantastic. Posich is the guy I want them to sign in free agency. The legend Vera in the chat. I'm honored. Hey, Vera is a fantastic listener to our station and a fantastic caller. And if you ever meet him out at one of our events, he'll talk some football with you. And I'm excited that he hopped on here onto the chat. I like Tank Bigsby. I do too. I actually have a fantasy football future share on one of my futures teams of Tank Bigsby. I'm intrigued to see him. We'll get a little bit more clarity on these running backs come combine time. So a little bit more combine action on these running backs, and we'll get some clarity on kind of who's rising, who's falling a little bit. If you had to guess how quickly the Texans turn it around and have a winning season, 3 seasons. 23 is not going to be a bunch of wins. 24 should be more, and then 25 you need to have a winning record. I don't believe that's totally out of the question. Also, Food Truck Park in Porter, about 15. They're all really good. Yeah, I think the food truck move is. I think the food truck move is the way to go. If there's a bunch of different food trucks around, you can choose. Okay. Worth 12 pick alone when guys like Adrian Rowan close to the 20th pick. Plus, you have to pay Higgins. Close. Look, if you're getting Higgins and the 28th, I'll trade the 12th and I'll pay him $20 million. I'll just do it. T. Higgins is a baller. T. Higgins is a baller. I love his game. He's very good. Is he the best wide receiver in football? No. Would he be the best wide receiver on this team by a significant margin? Absolutely. Is there anybody that's a wide receiver that you're drafting at 12 that's anywhere close to T. Higgins? No. No, you're not. Maverick says Andre Johnson's new bar and grill. Yeah, Andre just got that thing going right across the street from PJ Tucker's joint. Jake Asman, 411 Sports Bar and Grill is legit. Jake's been there. He showed me some pictures of some of the food he had. 411 Sports Bar and Grill. Check them out. Check them out. Favorite and most likely free agent target this offseason. My favorite's Ethan Posich, the center from the Cleveland Browns. That's who I want them to get. I want it to be Tunsil, Kenyon Green, Ethan Posich, AJ Cann, Titus Howard. Great Wall of Houston. I want it to be the Great Wall of Houston for that quarterback. I want that to be that's what I want that to be. So, Great Wall of Houston. That's what I want. Aiden, how'd you get in the radio business or on the ESPN show? I got in the radio business and wanted to be a radio host because I did not like my business classes at Texas Tech. Um, I was in business classes. Business math actually was the class. The teacher's name was James Brown. He called himself the godfather of math, which he thought was just hilarious. I didn't think it was very funny. And I hated the classes. And he said one day, if you don't like this class, this is what your life's going to be doing business management. And I said, well, I don't like this class. So I packed my stuff up and I got up. And he said, sir, you need to stay to get credit for attendance today. I said, I'm dropping the class. Like, I'm sorry, I'm dropping the class. Thank you for everything. I leave. I get back to the dorms. I'm hanging out with my buddy. We're probably cracking some brews, playing Halo or something. He's like, well, what are you going to do? Now you're not doing business management. I was like, I don't know. And he was kind of being a smartass to my buddy Jeff from college. And he goes, well, why don't you just talk about sports for a living? You know everything about sports. Why don't you just talk about sports for a living? Actually, it's a great idea. So I started trying to get a journalism degree. I'd listened to John and Lance growing up, John Granado, Lance Erline. They're on the bench, ESPN 975. I'd listened to them growing up. And so I was like, well, why can't I do that? Got a journalism degree, worked in Lubbock. Relationships is everything in life. People will tell you it's not what you know, it's who you know. That's a lie. It's what you know, who you know, and what do they know that you can do. It's one thing to speak on someone's behalf. It's another thing to clearly say they are capable of this, this, and this. So create a lot of relationships. I was able to get an opportunity in Houston. I interned for the company I'm at now way back in the day, kept up the relationships, worked at another station across town, got fired. I'll tell you that story in person. You ever come out to one of the Wheelhouse live broadcasts? It's probably a 2 beer story. It's really important for you when you get fired to kind of figure yourself out, look inward, get better at your job. I got better, worked with Jake at Gal Media on the national side, COVID, back here, yada yada. Longer story. You get the full one in person. You ever come out to one of the live broadcasts for the Wheelhouse? All right. But yeah, combination of luck and combination of sticking out a lot of things. And look, I'm lucky to do what I do on the radio each day, and I'm really lucky to be sitting here with over 100 people on YouTube, just talking some sports and talking some BS with you guys. Again, the chats, get them in. We're in the Q&A portion. Anything flies, and if you got a super chat, you go to the top of this deal. What do you think about Tank Bigsby? I think I said that earlier. I'd leave this. I would leave this draft with 2 running backs. I'd have Damian Pierce. I'd have a veteran from free agency, and then I'd have 2 rookies. Deuce Vaughn's a guy I really like. Bigsby's good. I like him. Um, I like Roshan Johnson from Texas. Jameer Gibbs is really good. That's probably a second round investment. So there's a lot. There's a lot to choose from. And again, Daniel Jeremiah and Dane Brugler said this is the deepest running back class that they've seen in a very long time. Would be too costly if we try to go. He just, from what I read on Pro Football Focus, and look, I'm not sitting here acting like I've broken down Garrett Bradbury film. Okay, but what I read on Pro Football Focus and their stats and their grades, just not very good at pass blocking. And I'd like a guy that's got a little bit more pass blocking prowess to him. Do you can see the new uniforms? No. I familiar with some of the concepts they might bring in. They're not done. Like they haven't figured out exactly what they're doing yet with the running backs or with the uniforms. I do believe they're going to be really fun. Dream draft: Bijan at 12, Deuce Vaughn in the 4th and 5th round. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll sign up for it. I would stake my job on Bijan Robinson. If I get a quarterback at 2 and I'm Nick Caserio, if Cody Stoots was the general manager of the Houston Texans, I'd put my job on the line with Bijan Robinson. I would. You tell my brother Daniel Salas to finish his homework, go to bed, please. You draft Bijan's backup in the 3rd or the 4th. What do you think? Daniel, go to bed, do your homework. I guess Luis is looking out for your best interest. I don't know. Maybe you already did the homework. Who knows? Again, 2 running backs. I would leave the draft. You have 11 selections. Isaiah Pacheco is a 7th rounder. Take a swing. Have those young guys in there. Take a swing. Okay? Take a swing. at the running back spot. No way I'm about to major in business at Texas Tech. Business school pretty good. I mean, it ain't Arkansas. It's the Sam Walton School of Business, you know. Smash Ball. Hey, doesn't matter where you take your gal to eat. Focus on the sunset. Good call. Good call. You get a good view of the sunset. Couple of beverages. Get her a little some chocolates and such. Not bad. How involved do you think Burke is going to be as a DC defense side of the ball? Just a yes man, D'Amico, and full control play caller. I believe Burke was the type of guy that D'Amico is going to call the defense. I believe there were guys that D'Amico Ryans wanted that would call the defense for him. I believe Burke is the type of guy, having not previously worked with D'Amico Ryans, best to the best of my knowledge, I believe this is the type of guy that's going to help D'Amico with the defense, and D'Amico's going to call the defense. That's what I believe. That's what I believe. Wouldn't mind Spears over Vaughn. The Tulane running back, Tajay Spears, I think is how you say his name. I don't want to get it wrong. Spears from Tulane. A very fun prospect. Yep, JJ says, I'd take a swag on the running back for Tulane. His name escapes me. Yes, Spears. How about a cornerback starting opposite Derek instead of a backup running back? I thought Steven Nelson and Derek Stingley was a really nice pair. I thought that was a really nice pair, and I'd be interested in seeing that pair run it back. Now, in the middle rounds, depth at corner, absolutely. You can't ever have too many corners. You can't ever have too many running backs, and you can't ever have too many pass rushers. So, I would take a swing at a corner in the middle rounds. I've seen Joey Porter Jr. mock to the Texans a couple of times, and I just don't see that. I don't see them spending yet another first on a corner. I really don't. I really don't. All right. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. 100 or so people in here. Appreciate the time. Monday night fun stuff. The dynamic tag team of beautiful Bobby Slowik and Double J Jerrod Johnson. Going to take care of us on offense. Okay. Going to have some fun this season on offense, hopefully. And will be interesting to see what those two guys put together for the rest of the staff. And Clint Kubiak could be on the way for the run game coordinator. That would be another young offensive mind to have in there. So that's something to pay attention to as well. Got a fun video coming up on the YouTube channel from the show. I'm going to edit it right as we get off here about why you absolutely need to draft a quarterback based off of the Super Bowl. So be on the lookout for that, as we'll have some content from the Wheelhouse popping up on the channel as well. One more question from Nathan. Any free agent DB catch your eye? I do wonder if there's going to be a veteran safety with Jalen Petrie. So I do wonder if they'll go veteran safety next to Jalen Petrie. So that's something to keep your eye out on. JJ Stagg, leave a like. Hey, I appreciate everybody. Over 100 people watching. Appreciate you commenting and interacting. The comments are great. They keep things flowing. It's not just me talking. It's you guys talking on here. And appreciate everybody watching. I would appreciate a like on the video, a thumbs up down below, a subscribe as well if you've never subscribed. Certainly would appreciate that. And tell your friends. Tell your friends. Send this in an email to one of your friends. Hopefully they like it and they subscribe. They watch it as well. Subscribing it gets it into the algorithm and then gets us going all the way through, getting us a bunch more Texans fans in here to talk some Texans football. What do you guys think of the new background? New background. Everybody was very critical of the background and not having one. I got one now. What do you guys think of it? Let me know in the comments. Okay? Let me know in the comments. So if you're watching after the fact, the comments will be flowing. We'll be interacting in there. Appreciate everybody live watching. Again, thank y'all so much. This is so much fun. We get to just pop on a Monday night and talk some football. Ain't that great? Ain't that fun? Sean knows how we finish this thing. Eat good, sleep good, be good. And we will talk to you again soon here on the YouTube channel.